Settle in, say hello in the chat. And I think we will get started. Welcome to each of you to Thrive Network, to the beloved community journey, and to this beautiful conversation in the alchemy that is about to take place with Bayo Akomolafe and Isoke Femi. So please feel free to continue saying hello in the chat and using the chat throughout our time together. My name is Aria Shell, she, her pronouns, and I am a co-founding member of Thrive, and I'll be your host today. And I want to start by welcoming you. We welcome your presence from all parts of the country, from around the world, and all the different time zones you're in. In California, we're kicking off here bright and early at 9 a.m. And we know, Bayo, for you, it's Saturday evening at 10:30 p.m. So we are in this fabric of space-time together. So thank you to each of you for saying yes to being a part of Thrive in this community, in this journey, if only for these 90 minutes or for these next 9 months. Thank you for coming together and bringing our heart minds together at this precious moment in this crack in time. I want to welcome all of who you are, as you are, all of your identities, your bodies, your emotions, your spirits, your failures, your dreams. We honor and welcome all the ancestors and ancestral lineages that stand behind us and live within us. And we honor and welcome all of the elders in our lives and on this call and the wisdom that they offer us. And we honor and welcome the children in our lives and the future generations that guide us and inspire us in our work for healing and transformation. And we honor and welcome all the more than human relatives and the elements that have shaped us and sustained us in so many ways. We welcome our larger body of Earth. And we want to take a moment to invite you to welcome each other with your eyes, your hearts. If you are able to come off of camera, to just take a moment to scroll through who's here, say hello. All of us who have gathered to be in community in this virtual circle today. There are 107 of us strong right now. So just taking in the beauty and dignity of each person and all of their humanity. Taking each other in. We also recognize and honor the first peoples of the land, wherever you are currently residing or sheltering. And for Thrive Network, historically called Thrive East Bay, we are located on the unceded Huichin territory of the Lejeune Ohlone people. And we want to give thanks for the thousands of years of prayer, of care, and stewardship that they have put into these lands. We honor and acknowledge all Indigenous people and those who continue this legacy of prayer and stewardship despite centuries of colonization, genocide, and displacement. And we stand in solidarity with their ongoing struggles for self-determination and rematriation of land and sacred sites. And one way we do this as a community and as guests on Ohlone land is by paying the Shumi land tax contribution via the Segorote Land Trust, which is an urban Indigenous women-led land trust here in the Bay Area that facilitates the return of Indigenous land to Indigenous people. So we'll share the link for that in the chat. We acknowledge also the labor of Black folks, the historical legacy of slavery and the ongoing violence of white supremacy in this country, on Turtle Island or the United States. And as we turn to face these harms, we also celebrate and lift up Black love and Black joy and stand with the movements for Black lives and our collective liberation. So as we come together to reckon and repair, I would like to invite Isoke, who I will introduce more fully in a moment, but to open us with an invocation. And you're on mute.
Thank you, Aria. Thank you, everyone. I am unmuted, yes?
Okay. Yes, you are. Yep.
Okay. Let us start by just imagining for a moment that you may have lived a life inside of a very tiny, beautiful tree, but that just behind you and to the side of you and even in front of you is a majestic tree waiting for you to empower it. If there be one thing that I could take on for myself and offer to the world, it would be to accept my magnitude and to operate only from that magnitude. So just take a moment and see if you can feel that greater tree and let your energetic body flow into that majestic tree that you are. I have a little bit of a cough, so I'm gonna see if I can get through this song without a spasm. This song was written by Holly Near and Chris Williamson, I believe. Definitely Holly Near, right after 9/11. I am open and I am willing to be hopeless, what seems so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the wind of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. But I am open, I am willing to be hopeless, would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change.
We can all just take a breath and let those vibrations settle in our tissues, in our bone marrow. Thank you, Isoke, for calling in our magnitude and calling in our willingness to be present with each other and all that is arising and happening in our world. So I'm going to provide a little framing and introduce our guests. So this conversation is hosted by Thrive Network, and we are a community that bring people together at the intersections of meaning, of belonging, of music, the arts, and social change. We We're about 6 years old. We've been building a multi-generational, multiracial, beloved community and are guided by 4 principles of thriving lives, love in action, shared learning and practice, and systemic change. And our theme tonight is a crack in time, a conversation on roots, repair, and reimagining. And it's a part of a new 9-month series that we're hosting called the Beloved Community Journey, a journey in bridging, building, and belonging. It is a rich and full program series of learning, practice, and action that includes some of the leading visionaries, activists, and artists of our time. And each month we dive into a theme that will support us to bridge, build, and belong. We kicked off last month with healing and care as our foundation to root down into collective care for each other and for our earth. This month, we are exploring what it means to reckon and repair, to reckon with the harm and trauma of these legacies of oppression, the myth of separation that divides us, and also what it means to be in the practice of repair. And as Bayo often says, to make sanctuary with each other. So we're so honored to be joined by 2 of my most beloved teachers, Isoke Femi and Bayo Akomolafe, who I know will open us into new and old ways of thinking and seeing. I want to welcome you both. And first, just express my gratitude to you for being here and for the significant role that you each have played in my life. Isoke, I've had the blessing to study and collaborate with you through the Soul of Justice and the Her Stories Project and in our deep friendship for nearly 20 years. So I love you, and I'm so grateful you're here. In Bayo, more recently through your teachings and writings and your amazing global course on fugitivity, Blackness, cracks, and post-activism, We Will Dance with Mountains. And both of you teach in different ways about the power of embracing the exiled parts of ourselves, the exiled parts of our world, to show what becomes possible when we move beyond the binary, when we embrace and learn from multiplicity and the both and, the in-between, when we invite and celebrate the trickster. And especially at this time in late stage capitalism, when we're experiencing and standing at the precipice of so much collapse of our social systems, our ecological systems, what can we learn inside the rubble, inside these cracks, inside the trouble of these times? So I'm very excited to learn from you, to listen and introduce you both. So I'm going to introduce you, share some questions, and then set back and give you all the space to fly and dance and rumble as you will. So Isoke Femi is a cherished wisdom teacher, imaginal practitioner, facilitator, and founder of Soul Matters. For over 30 years, she has worked with hundreds of groups throughout the US, supporting them to appreciate difference and to engage in cultural transformation and racial healing. She is a co-founder of the Todos Alliance Building Institute and a co-author of No Boundaries, a manual for unlearning oppression and building multicultural alliances. In her work, Isoke draws on indigenous African concepts such as soul force, personalism, and vitalism as a way of engaging and integrating learning. She currently serves as the maven of transformative learning at Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco. And I know, Isoke, that you've been diving deeply into metaphysics these days. So I hope you will also bring that perspective into the conversation. So I offer you a deep welcome and gratitude for being here.
Thank you, Aria.
And Bayo Akomolafe is an author, lecturer, speaker, father, chief curator of the Emergence Network, and a rogue planet saved by the gravitational pull of his wife, EJ. He is globally recognized for his poetic, unconventional, counterintuitive, and indigenous take on global crises, civic action, activism, and social change. Bayo has authored 2 books, We Will Tell Our Own Story, and These Wilds Beyond Our Fences, which I just got in the mail. I can't wait to read it. letters to my daughter on humanity's search for home, and so much more. Bayo, we give you a deep welcome and much, much gratitude for being here. And I'm going to offer up some questions for y'all to dance with in the spirit of our theme. And the title of this conversation, A Crack in Time, Roots, Repair, and Reimagining. So what is this crack in time that we're in? And what can we learn from the cracks? What do we need to uproot? What do we need to root down into? What can we learn from Blackness and Black cosmology? How can we repair and make sanctuary with each other? What should we be reimagining? So with that, any or all of those themes, please, we invite you to be in conversation with each other. I'll pop back in around 10:15, 10:20 to move us toward a close. So I hand it over to you.
Isoke.
Yes, I said, you get us started, Bayo.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
Unless
known
you're not
Isoke.
ready.
No. I'm never ready, by the way. I'm I'm never ready. I just show up. But I was going to say that I've known, I greet you all here to hear and to be part of our conversation. I've known Isoke for 4 years now. She was actually a part of the course, We Will Dance with Mountains, the third iteration of the course. Just a beautiful gift to my family when we met her in California. So Isoke, it's good to see you again and to see you're looking well and doing great. Now onto our cracky business. What did Arya say about cracks? What are cracks? I really still do not know how to answer the question of what cracks are, Isoke. They seem to me to be miracles. That is a place in the universe that is so dense that the world folds in on itself, right? It's a crack in my life, if I were to speak about it personally, though I do not think cracks are personal things, was when I met EJ, my wife. The encounter undid everything. And I started to calculate my life up to that moment. It was BE and AE, right? Before I met EJ and after I met EJ. It's like cracks are this magnetic events that spill across space-time and undo everything in its image. And in a sense, we're witnessing a crack or multiple cracks today. The notion of the modern, the idea of justice, the idea of continuity, the stability that has been granted us by society and the retreating of the ice, in the pre-Holocene period. It seems we are now in a time of cracks, multiple cracks, and our indebtedness to the world around us, heavily subsidized by modern civilization. The debtors are arriving at our doors. And we are now being compelled to account for the separation, for the notions of exclusivity, for the individualism that we've practiced for all this time. We now have to pay up.
Ooh, child.
Yeah, I'll just stop there for now.
Every now and then, yes, I just want you to pause and let that land. I'm curious to know if we were in a room where we could actually talk to all the people who are here, I'd be saying, what part of what Bayo just said do you want to live with for a moment? You want to just sort of incorporate into your process, your ongoing process. And for me, the answer would be debtors at the door. You know, um, debtors at the door. Wow, wow, wow. And to know that I'm one of the debtors, you know.
Yeah.
Crack a crack. This
Mm.
morning in my meditation, the word that arose is pretense. That one of the cracks is a crack that is allowing us to confront the fact that we have pretended ourselves into this moment. And we have believed it so much that it has become real, right? So we can pretend something else. This is a moment when, and another image that comes to my mind is, I think, from the Old Testament, which, doesn't exist for Jews, it's just the Bible. But
Right.
I think it's in Deuteronomy, that something about, if you give me but the space of the eye of a needle, I can drive chariots through it, right? And so
Right.
this crack, that's one of the images that comes to my mind with this crack. And the eye of the needle has shown up for me, so that something is flooding in, it's coming in that I didn't know existed, I didn't know I didn't have. So that's really exciting for me. It's scary too, because it looks a lot like mercy and forgiveness in a world that actually a significant part of the world hates the idea of forgiveness and mercy. And so for me to now be, finding that that's what's calling me to speak on its behalf, is a scary thing. It's a scary thing sometimes. But this idea of pretending, if we just play with it for a moment, pretending that we actually separated from something, and everything that followed that separation, everything that followed it, what we had to do to keep that illusion going. The illusion that I'm small and pathetic, that I'm an accident, I have nothing to do with how I got here or what's happening to me. I'm not creating anything. All for me, the crack is about a lot of these illusions being shaken and disturbed. There's so many disturbances in the field. And I certainly feel it, right? Like, to make it super personal, because I like to do that. I've been in a relationship for 34 years, in which probably the first 20 or more years were full of strife, and in which my inner traumatized child was banging at the door of my partner and demanding that she heal me. I didn't know that was happening. It was happening on a subconscious level. But the day that I decided I was no longer going to do that, no matter what, it was almost like a metaphorical sitting on my hands, right? I'm going to just, no matter what, I'm not going to bang on the door that either won't or can't be opened, and that I have no right to bang on anyway. Everything shifted. Everything shifted from that moment. The first thing that happened was that I discovered that there was a temper tantrum I needed to have, that I had been over those 20 years letting a little pressure off here, a little pressure off there, but it wasn't really the big temper tantrum I needed to have about childhood trauma, about everything. And I grew up in an era where I'm 70. So in my growing up, temper tantrums, there was no, you don't have, white kids have temper tantrums. You don't have temper tantrums in this house, in this family, right? And so this temper tantrum needed to happen, but it needed to not try to find a target. Up till that moment, it kept trying to find a target. And so I removed myself from the situation in this one moment when I felt like I can't hold my commitment. I'm going to go off on her. But, I didn't. I went to my room and I literally had a temper tantrum. I was flailing, I was yelling, I was crying, I was snotting. I was like the temper tantrum that I needed to have 100 times as a child when all these things were happening. And I never had them. And I haven't had one since. Like, I have moments, but so that was a crack, right? There was a crack that happened that allowed me to shift, first of all, to notice that I can control certain things that it felt like I couldn't before.
Mhm.
And when I say control, I really mean like there's mastery waiting for me to take it. And I wouldn't take it before. I didn't know it was possible. But now this mastery is here in some ways. Now, not that I'm, at the end of, there's, no end, but I can feel there's more mastery now.
Mhm.
And all of this from this decision to not target someone else with my suffering.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you, Aunt Isoke. I'm pulled gravitationally to the idea of release and to this notion of forgiveness. That forgiveness is impossible if we dwell on the surface of things. There isn't room for forgiveness in the eye of justice. The public order is situated on deep founded metaphysical assumptions that undergird what it means to be a citizen, what it means to be a person. And forgiveness is an implosion of this, is a disruption of this order, this arrangement. And I recall, if we were to read, you invoked the Christian Bible, and I remember that the act of death was synonymous or contemporaneous with the splitting of the curtain in the temple. That is, this great and mighty and cosmic act of forgiveness didn't find room within the Roman, order that had been created. The colonial order had no room for forgiveness. It literally had to split the curtain into two. That is the normal. The forgiveness is basically the secretion of amazing grace. That it's awkward. It's too awkward to be held within, the sentence of our normal everyday lives. It needs something transversal, right? And it's cracks, right? It's like those moments that something interrupts continuity, something disturbs the idea that we're singular selves, and that we are on our own, or that our struggles are our own, and not the villages. Something disturbs and haunts that, and tears the curtain and tears the ground and says there's something more. There's an abundance here. There are resources here. There's gift here. You were speaking about pretense, and I was playing in my mind. You said we should play, so why not? Let's play with it. Pretense, it's like a pre-sentence, right? And I was thinking about a post tense, right? And then my mind went to the alphabet, 26 letters in the English alphabet. But I learned recently, some time ago, I think a couple of years ago, that there are actually 27, not 26. The letter that comes after letter Z is ampersand. And right, but it was phased out over years, right? It was phased out over years. It was some monk in England, I think, that invited the alphabet into. So it's actually the 27th alphabet, and I love that. And I love that it's still hidden, it's still invisible, And this tells me that after all is said and done, with all the letters we can contrive, that there is a space that is beyond words, that is beyond language, that is beyond meaning, even, that is beyond eloquence, that is a space of deep rhizomatic entanglement. This is the space where forgiveness sprouts from. It's a space of release and freedom and abundance. It's the space of the ampersand, where our bodies have never been separate, where we've always been performatively linked with the modern human, with ancestrality, with a future that has already happened, and with a past that is yet to come.
What is it like to live in you? I mean, I just can't even imagine, right? It's like, I don't know, just wow. Okay,
It's
so
exhausting.
I think yes, I can imagine that it is. Yes, you know, and you know, I've been called pop. It's been said that I have popcorn brain. You know, like I'm all just like all over the place. But what's one of the things I wanted to say today? I want to bring my mama and my cousins and people like that who ain't gonna likely be on this call. That's a returning for me that I'm, you know, this crack for me is some about returning. I can't sing the song, but some people on here know the song, Sweet Honey in the Rock, saying, we all, every one of us, have to come home again. And I don't know if anybody on here like could, you know, Aria, if somebody could find it real quick and maybe at the end play it a minute of it or so, because it's important. That's one of the moments that I'm in right now. I'm in many moments, but one of them is Mama and them. And I almost want to say Mama and them. Let me see if I can write Mama and them. There you go, right? Like, it's not mama and them, it's mom and them. Mama and them, right? Which is the contraction of mama and them, right? But we never would have said mama and them, right? I want to go back to mama and them. And one of the things that I've been drawing on them for here recently, as I address my hybridization as someone who spent the first 11 years completely in Black community, and then the next however many, either in all white spaces or very integrated spaces, not knowing what it was going to cost me to become fluent, you know, so fluent in this new world that anyway, I won't go into all that, but I want to bring them back because they had things. There are things that you cannot say, that I can't say from my hybridized self. I have to say them from the Black self. And they are much needed. They are much needed right now. So one of them is this. It take all kind of people to make a world. It take all kind of people to make a world. You can say that 20 different ways. If I was in a room with people, I would just have them saying it. Get in a dyad and say it every kind of way that you can say it. It take all kind of people to make a world. So the next time you see somebody that you want to exile, somebody you want to crucify, somebody you want to bury or wish death upon, remind yourself, it take all kind of people to make a world. I say this with a little bit of what might feel like anger. It's not really anger. It's the conviction of speech that also I'm trying to go back and get. Mom and them didn't half step. They didn't measure. They said it how they felt it and how it came, and that's how it came out. I'm trying to bring that back into these conversations that we're having because they ain't here to do it. They ain't here to do it, so I have to do it. I want to do it. Right. Because it's enlivening, it's fun, it's real, it's natural, it's unpretentious, all that. I'm trying to get all that back. This crack in time is an opportunity for us to go back and resurrect those that we buried in the name of getting ahead, in the name of, you know, fitting in the name of anticipating the crucifixion of those things that we wanted to say or do. And so we shut up instead. It's time. It's time to resurrect, you know? So, and I know I'm using some Christian terms here.
Go ahead, Auntie.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
whatever. So,
Go ahead.
so it take all kinds of people to make a world. But when I left Black community, that was not the ethos that I was introduced to. I was introduced to an ethos that believed in purity. We didn't have to be pure where I came from. You did not have to be pure. Now, there were people, you know, high people in the church who didn't, you know, who had, you know, become that way. But most of the people, it was like, no, look, let me tell you something. You see that man over there? He gonna ask you to sit on his lap. Don't sit on his lap. Don't sit on no man's lap. But if you ever are hungry, that man over there will give you something to eat. That man over there, you know, they had a way of telling you, these are all parts of the village. You have to get smart. You can't be an idiot, but you can't exile them. And I don't know if we brought that with us from the continent or if it was something that we honed here. I think we did hone it. Even if we brought it, we had to hone it, because under the enslavement system, there was no exiling anybody. No. Because it would mean to death. You knew it. You knew that if you exiled somebody from the cabin, that was death. And you knew that the system was insane and it was giving rise to insanity. So you forgave people. You knew you was crazy. I'm crazy because of this enslavement system. My brothers and sisters are crazy. Everybody's crazy. And the people who are enacting this are super crazy. So we forgive each other, you know? But that I just want to keep coming back to that phrase. It take all kind of people to make a world. And this is the question I want to put to my beloved tribe of social justice seekers. Can you imagine yourself living into that statement? What difference would it make if you did that? I don't need you to be a political party member. I don't need you to be in. What you are is what you are. And if this thing if there's anything here that controls anything, it's all allowed. So who am I to not allow it? Who am I to not allow all this crazy diversity? I can deal with the question of what it means. Okay, so yeah, you know, theoretically that might sound good. That sounds good. But what if you're in the front, you're standing in front of somebody, or you get the news that this young man was found innocent, when, you know, like, it's utterly inconceivable. Then what do you do? What do you do with this ethos that says it takes all kinds of people to make a world? What do you do then? I'm not pretending that I know the answer to that. Right now, I'm just holding this piece. It takes all kinds of people to make a world. And then the last thing I want to say about it is that that's important not only because that person over there deserves to be here, or else they wouldn't be here, but what about all that in me that I don't want to accept? That's really, really, really that's really the question. Because the pretense is that I can take out of me what I can't tolerate and make you carry it, Bayo.
Yeah.
Or make some group carry it. Right. That's the big, to me, if we could get closer to something about that, and I'll leave it for you to theorize about, but like, if we could get closer to that, like, nothing I see outside of me is not in me. I got to reckon with it in here, or I'll just keep creating things to kill, to destroy, to hate, because it's starting in here. All right, I'm gonna stop there.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't, Auntie. It's what you just said about the mothers basically saying that man Don't sit on his lap, but he'll feed you when you're hungry. That felt like home. That felt like home. That felt like my mom. That felt like my aunties. That felt like my grandmothers. That felt deeply ancient and familiar, and yet contemporary. I know many stories of, you see, that's why me, this African boy, I'm perpetually shocked at the way, at the world that I meet outside, at the phenomenon of cancel culture, the the banishment of um, of bodies, or the rejection of pixels. I call it pixelation, and I'll say a bit why
Oh,
I do so. I feel that people don't cancel people. It's patterns that cancel people, right? That 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 it's almost like a possession. That if I were to reduce a counselor, you know, to some evil, uh, then I would be stopping a conversation that needs to be had about the algorithms, the the world's and the influences and the agonistic forces we're swimming in right now, that actually enlists and recruits our bodies to investigate the wretchedness of others. It seems that in order to be selves in these times, we need to be invested in other people's wretchedness, because it gives us a sense of place. It gives us a sense of standing. It gives us a sense of righteousness, right? That, yeah, I got this down. So it's almost, and you know, I'm writing a piece with my sister uh, about maybe cancel culture as a symptom of climate change. that the world seems to be squeezing itself, and the very topography of the citizen is haunted and beleaguered by these forces, the insurgency of the modern human. And so there's no more room, there's no more space, right? And so we're squeezed in. And the way to respond to that is to fight for space for ourselves. And so there's a greater intolerance of the other, no longer any nuanced conversation about complexity. The easiest thing to do is to reduce you to an image. And that's violent. That's an incredibly violent act. It's to reduce you to an image, and to assume the position of you know, this is one thing that social networks and the internet and computers allow us to do. They allow us to float above space-time. You know, Galileo had the telescope, Isoke, and that came with costs, right? We were now suddenly able to, it's not Galileo, well, some people say that it's not Galileo, but I digress. We were now able to zoom in into space and zoom out, you know, while staying where we were. The luxury of being able to zoom into space and gain high definition and zoom out was something we didn't have before. That influenced human beings in a particular way. I think social networks are also doing something to us, right? It's not just that we use technologies, that technology also uses us. And I think that the ability to look at a life as if it were a compilation of pixels, and basically say, what did this guy say in 1972? And what is he saying in 1982? It's like a moral dissociation from the complexity, from our complicity, from our entanglement, from the idea that none of us are pure, none of us are removed. All of us are braiding complexity and complicity, right? But the screen allows us this strange and alien agency to zoom into a life and pick what's wrong out, and basically say, Mandela didn't use the right words, so we're going to cancel Mandela right now. So I think in a sense, we're not just creating technologies, we're being created in the images of the technologies that we supposedly created. We're becoming pixelated, we're becoming brittle, and the world outside is demanding something else from us that we don't know how to meet. I think cracks gift us with give us monstrous appendages. That's the gift of the trickster. The trickster is the disappointment of completion, issue, traveled across the Atlantic to creolize the world with black bodies, right? The trickster's work is to disappoint your idea of identity. So when you think you have everything together, the trickster comes in and pokes you and disappoints your rival, right? To say, no, you haven't got anything down pat. You don't know nothing. This world is a teenage exploration of itself, an orgasmic unfolding. You are not there yet. You are not righteous. You're not woke, none of that, right? So I'm not even sure where I was going with this. I became possessed by self. But I think, yeah, what the trickster gives us, what the cracks, and cracks are tricksters, what the trickster gives us is the monstrous. It allows us to play with new things around us, which modernity teaches us to pathologize as a wound or a traumatic thing to be exorcised or something inadequate. But I think that's where transformation happens, when we learn to touch our wounds and notice that none of us have arrived, none of us are complete. We need a political project that allows us to gather around cracks, the aesthetics of incompleteness. I think will save us from this rush to completion that is the image of the pixel, right? Yeah, I think I need to pause there and just.
Beautiful. There's so much here. My mute button was on, but I tried to stop you at possession. So I want to play with that a little bit. And let me say that in this attempt to return, there are two different ways that I want to return to these Black roots. One is with Black folks, and particularly Black folks who are who I know that they are hybrids, because I work in a place where there's a lot of Black people, but there are a lot of different Black people. And I mean, we're all different, right? There's no monolith. But what I really mean by that is that, like, the people who are on the front line at Glide are the people who for lack of a better way of talking about it, they're close to the bone of Blackness. It's almost like in the enslavement communities where there were the people who worked in the kitchen and the people who worked in the field. So and these are all very touchy and tricky things to talk about, but the people who are on the front line are by and large not hybrids. They wouldn't be in this conversation, and if they just wouldn't. This is not where they're coming from.
Isoke, what do you mean by hybrids?
It's the best way I know
about that?
to talk about myself at the moment, which is that, I had this first 11 years in this pretty much all Black world. I mean, school was not, but the community, it was a very rich and vibrant and complex community that I grew up in. And then I was removed and taken and put into a white boarding school, right? So that's my pre and post journey. So in that white world that I entered at age 11, there was a lot of healing that happened. This was not a place where people were just very close to immediate post-slavery, right? Like, the healing of the post-traumatic slave syndrome hasn't even really, I don't know I don't know how that's going to happen, when that's going to happen, but it hasn't happened. It's certainly had not happened when I was 11 years old. Nobody understood any of it. We were just trying to make it. We're just trying to survive. So all that toxicity that was, trying to find escape from my elders landed on us. And so I go into the boarding school where there's not any of that. Everything is, it's clean. It's very, it was very upper class. I mean, it was just a total culture shock. And from then to now, much of my world has been like that.
Right.
So to me, being a hybrid means that I hung out in the spaces of whiteness, which I now identify in some ways as the cult of whiteness.
Uh-huh.
And there was a lot of confusing things like, oh, it's safer here. Oh, it's cleaner here. Oh, there's abundance here. I'm never hungry here. Oh, there's all kinds of books. I can read here. I can be a student. So my hungry mind got fed there, all this stuff. And the association is that this is good and that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a lot of this journey for this individual is about healing that separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a world in which the cult of whiteness is only under attack. There's not very much examination about, oh, but it's in me. So when I attack the cult of whiteness, I'm attacking me because it is now woven into my sinew.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't extract it if I wanted to, right? So I believe there are other people, other Black people who have a similar experience and we need each other to remember what got us through, to remember who we were, what is still here, that is not only for us, not only for our healing, but for the healing of the planet. Because I often think about a big round table where all the religions are invited, all the spiritual traditions are invited. And I can't imagine anybody inviting the Bantu cosmology people to be at that table. It's the roots of voodoo, the roots of Santeria, the roots of candomblé, the roots of the Holy Ghost. No one has, not no one, but it's very, the circles where that is explored are not centralized. They're marginalized. So those conversations haven't been brought in even to the mainstream of Black consciousness. We still enjoy the fruits of it through the music, the poetry, the dance, the oration, all that, but we don't understand the concepts of force and how, vitalism is a force and no one can take it. It's you know what I mean? So to the extent that we feel victimized, we feel, oh, somebody took my vitalism. No, baby, can't nobody take it. If it has gone down, if it's diminished, get some drummers, get into your body, move your hips. There, it is always there. Source is always there. It was our way to access source. To access source and to play with it and to shape it and mold it and, and we just, were convinced that it was of no value. No one understood it. It was of no value. But guess what? And I know people on here who maybe have heard me say this before, but okay, so what? When I read in my research that after 14 hours of being in the blazing sun, working those fields, that people, instead of going and collapsing in fatigue or going to get something to eat, they went and found hush harbors where they could do those African practices out loud, because they're loud. They're not contemplative. The ones that I'm talking about. I'm not saying that there's no contemplative, but they're expressive. They're deeply expressive. They're embodied, and you weren't allowed to gather to do that. So you had to find these spaces. And sometimes it would take an hour each direction after all this hard work in the field to go and find those places where you could make the rhythms, sing the songs, sway the body, yell, cry, testify to each other in order to reach and get the source and to become possessed by the healing forces of the universe. You had to become possessed. So we are masterful at becoming possessed. I'm possessed right now. Right now, I'm possessed. And I've been learning over all these years that possession is a bad thing. No, keep everything
Yes.
at level so that the waters don't get too rippled. I'm
Be
done.
sane. Yes.
Be sane, which is really insane because you're not in harmony with anything around you. How are you going to be sane and modulated under these conditions?
Yeah.
So the upset that everybody has, I just say we need to ritualize it. Let's find a way to ritualize this and not enact it. We don't have to enact it. We just can ritualize it, you know? Anyway, so let me see if I landed my point. I'm a hybrid who has treasures that came from the original source of my being here this time around in this dimension, and who is going back to get that, but who is not about trying to destroy the other part of me that became. I'm not trying to destroy that. I'm trying to heal it. I'm trying to take what's good of it because there's a lot of good that came from it, you know? I became a psychological practitioner through it. I do a lot of my work. My facilitation is largely informed by all that whiteness.
Right.
The higher side of that whiteness, the more liberatory side of that whiteness. And so I'm not about trying to destroy that. I'm not trying to pretend like it isn't here. And I want to create a space for other people who have a similar need or desire. So that's that one. The other one is that I want to offer that to anyone who wants it. So I want a Black space where we can freely flow with that, figure that out. And then I want a space where it's for everyone, because in this day and age, esotericism is no longer, I mean, it's okay wherever it is, but I'm not trying to protect this knowledge. This knowledge, the world needs the knowledge, and I want to give it. I don't know. That was a long, long rant there. So
no. It was what needed to be said, aunties. Thank you so much for saying that. If brilliant articulation of a political project that we need today. That is, I speak regularly about the Black outdoors, right? And the Black outdoors being not an outdoors with Black people. No, I don't even see Blackness as Black people. I see Blackness as the refusal of capture. That I will not be contained, I will not be held in this box. In fact, Blackness is the refusal of identity.
whoa.
It's like this geometry of orientation and disorientation. It's like I think it was Catherine Yusuf that even spoke of Blackness as this geological force, this counter-imperial, more than human force that swims like murmurations and undoes everything and counters every claim to stability and exclusivity. So I see, and whiteness, I don't think is actually, how people speak about whiteness as about white people. That seems to be utterly impoverished to me. I think whiteness also recruits Black identified bodies, brown identified bodies in how it matters. It's not whiteness is the flattening of the world to make room for the subject, the fetish of the modern, which is the human, right? Its avatar is the white identified body, right? That's its image. This is how we ought to look, right? This is the human And other bodies are not quite human, are not yet human, but this is the avatar. So even white identified bodies are incarcerated in this pyramid, this pyramidal scheme that is hollowing out because it's exerting itself to create room for the citizen, to put the global nation state order at rest, to keep everything functioning. As you were speaking, Aunt Isoke, I kept on asking myself, so what do we do with domination? What do we do with white modernity? What do we do when we are taken by the forces? And I remember a story. I'm not going to tell the entire story here. So maybe I'll just give a summary and abstract of the story. And it's a story about the god Ra, ancient Egypt. The god Ra. I'm sure I've shared the story with you, Aunt Isoke, before, or maybe we've shared a drink around it. I don't know. But it's about the god Ra, and he's at the temple, a drunkard. He's drunk, and he's basically lying down, and he's being made fun of by children and people coming around just pointing and saying, what a god you are, what a useless, horrible, drunk, homeless god you are. And Ra is livid and embarrassed and angry, and so he goes back to heaven, basically, with something that might resemble your temper tantrum and his screaming and stuff. And he calls to his side his wife, who is also his daughter, who is also his sister. And you know how those gods do. And he says to his daughter, or wife, or sister, Hathor is her name, go down to earth and kill all mankind. Destroy everything. Kill men, women, children. And Hathor takes this on. She goes and she eats bodies. And her ritual is to eat people and drink their blood, on the earth, and just retire for the day, exhausted. After a while, Ra is kind of regretful, and he says, okay, maybe you took this too much. You can come back home now, but Hathor cannot stop. And so this presents a problem not just to the gods and the pantheon, but to humankind. And no one knows what to do any longer. And so the gods and humans come together and they congregate, which is something that tells me all the time that we're not going to do this by ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're not gonna outwit, modernity by ourselves, because sometimes when we do that, we are just repeating the crisis. Yes. The notion that we can just put on a techno-bureaucratic front and solve all our problems just seems to be the problem masquerading itself as a solution. And so they come together and they come up with a trick. The gods and the humans come up with a trick. And the trick is, what we're going to do is we're going to pour out red wine. We're going to pour out red wine on the earth and basically trick Hathor into drinking this red wine. After she becomes intoxicated, our hope, we're going to try it, okay? Our hope is that she forgets her objectives and she leaves. And this happens. It happens according to plan. Hathor drinks the wine and she forgets why she's there and she leaves. And this is how the libation came into being. This is why they say Africans pour libations. This is why we pour drink to earth, to remind ourselves that we're sustained by a trick. We're not sustained by our brilliance. We're not sustained by our intelligence. We're not sustained by sustainability. We're sustained by a trick, that it's the trickster that sustains this realm. And by whipping up dust, when the wine hits the ground and whipping up dust, we're invoking, we're conjuring, the beauty of exile, not exiling bodies in that sense that we're speaking about, but that we need also to be quick on our feet like dust. We need to become fugitives sometimes, because stability could be the problem. And there are times when the world itself withdraws its endorsement and wants us to move. And I think that's where we are right now. We are in this pandemic, climate inflected world, and we're struggling and fighting about for what to do. And most of us are rushing into the hubris of justice, right? The rubric of justice, the metric of justice. But I think even justice, the notion of justice, as has been seen over time, the neck on George Floyd's, I mean, the knee on George Floyd's neck was the knee of justice, right? We're seeing over time that even justice can get in the way of transformation. So what do we do when we're stuck in a paradigm where the solution, the way out, is only the way back in? I think this is where we learn to fly. This is where we learn to become other. This is where we learn to do what you said, Auntie Soke, to open our bodies up to the possession of the more than human, to practice an aesthetic of the insensible, of the not yet sensed, right? And that is in this aesthetic gathering of making sanctuary together, where we become possessed together, where we learn to call ourselves by different names together, but not hold so fast to those names and identities that we lose sight of the invitation to travel, to be nomadic in troubling times. When we do that, I think something else opens up. I think we're helped. I think we open ourselves to the help and grace of the more than human.
Wow. Okay, let that sit here for a moment. So beautiful. I wonder, we're in a field and there are 132 other people and I mean, we're in a bit bigger field than that, but in this immediate field, there's 132 other people.
Yes.
And much has been conjured here. Images, ideas, thoughts, feelings. And I want the field to be able to somehow respond. And we know we can't hear from even, 3 or 4 people unless it's brief. So I'm right at this moment, I'm thinking about the Quakers and that practice of like letting something sit and trusting that one voice in the congregation will speak for the congregation, will be able to capture something that needs to be spoken out loud. That's not from me or you. I don't know how to do that with this technology, but I am wanting that. I'm wanting the collective to be able to speak, perhaps through one individual. Aria, are you here? Can you wrap your mind around this challenge?
I am, and I think if someone would like to speak, we can invite you to raise your hand, and then we can bring you off.
Yeah, but let me nuance that a bit, because lots of people want to speak. So what I'm asking for is not just for someone to give an individual offering, but to actually speak for the collective, to assume that there's something you caught that when you speak it, the collective will say, yeah, that needed to be said. Can you feel the difference there?
And probably I can add something to that, Auntie Soke, that if you feel the pressure of the burden of representation, because you might say to yourself, how do I speak for everyone? Right? No, you're not speaking for everyone. I don't trust in such categories, everyone, everybody. This is probably, if I may extend Auntie Soke's invitation, this is an experiment in trust. It is that what is what feels like a question or even an insight that is burning within. Representation is sometimes a poor term. Maybe it's not about representing what everyone feels, but something that has tasted the waters, that is of these waters, of these atmospheres that we're creating together. So trust your voice, trust your silence in speaking. You will not speak for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, then I need to change my view. Would it require you to unpin us, Aria? Or
I am going to invite Sunshine Michelle,
okay, all right.
who has raised her hand. Sunshine, so glad to welcome your voice. And there you go.
My name was put in the chat, and you're right, Bayo. It's all about trust, baby, and I'm about trust. So as you all were calling in that power and inviting us, what I was hearing, what I do hear is that we all matter, that it's more than we know, that if we just breathe into it and trust and stand, as Isoke said, into that tree. I imagined myself into a redwood, and I had to stop myself from stretching so thin into the redwood, because I know I can grow my full self into that redwood, not only up into the bark, but out into the branches and down into the roots. And this is where we pull from our ancestors. This is where we pull from others. Whoever the others are, we are the others, as they were saying. We pull from the gods, we pull from the heavens, we pull from the ethers, we pull from all places to be who we are.
Okay.
This world wouldn't be what it is without us, without our traumas, without our joys, without our experiences. And so now is the moment for us to stand in that and to forgive any places where we've played small, and just allow ourselves to stand tall in this next moment. For together we can do it. Through our songs, through our tears, through our joys, through our pains, through our understandings and our misunderstandings. We simply have to be willing. And we have to know that there's infinite possibility, and that there are the cracks, there are the gaps, and to stand into that. And as Bayo said, we will be shown. We just have to trust it. We have to come to it. We have to bring it. And this is the moment for us to do that. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
We also have Susan Clark. Can we invite your voice, Susan, as well? And
my cells are reverberating with the resonance of everything. And so in aiming to say, what are we listening together and feeling together? I think the trap of the whiteness and the white supremacy, has been a burden, believe it or not, for me and my people. And this healing backwards and healing deeply, I personally, and I know people, we've been unlearning faster than we're learning what is possible. It's disorienting. It's disorienting. I've been adrift. With, I had this adolescent reaction. I'm going to leave my people, leave all of it behind, and hang out with the trees and the vines and the dirt. And, where is the comfort of it? But I couldn't completely retreat, right? And so everything you've been pointing to, I think, has been feeding us permission to say we're disoriented. Don't rush to solutions. Don't buy the linear time. don't buy the storyline, well, that's in the past. We can go backwards to heal. And it kind of links to what Conda Mason said for the folks who were there on Wednesday. So I just want to thank you because I'm so moved. I think you're making it safe to say, I really don't have a clue, but to trust in that vital life force. And I just want to thank you because that there is no safe, secure place to stand, but there's a place to be together with your wisdom and the shared reckoning and investigation. So I'm just, I see so much gratitude in the chat, and I just feel it in every cell of my body. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. If I may jump in here, there's a Nigerian author. His name is Chinua Achebe, and he said basically in response to, I think, Archimedes, who proclaimed, "Give me a place to stand, and I shall move the world." And Chinua Achebe retorts, basically saying, there is no place to stand. The world moves, and we move along with it, right? This disorientation you speak of is the technology of the new. Stay there. It will do wondrous things. The world is moving. It's not just you.
Mm. Like that. Yes, that. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about the idea of stillness, and in my meditations, there is a stillness of my mind, but there is Kundalini energy that's always moving. I am never in a complete state of stillness. And I don't know if that's because, anyway, I'm not going to judge it. It's just my experience at the moment. But I wanted to say this too, again, bringing this down into, something that is maybe can be a guiding thought for a moment or something like that. I'm going to evoke Bernice again, my mother, Bernice Benson. My mother was a hellion. She was the farthest thing from a Hallmark mother you could get. And I'm learning to be okay with that. In fact, to really honor it and appreciate it. And so one of the ways that she did this was she would say, there would be mornings she'd wake up and she'd say, now look, I got hell in me today, so you better stay out of my damn way. And under my white influence, that always felt like, oh, you poor little kid. Like, oh, what a harsh mother. I mean, God, no wonder you have trauma, da, da, da. I don't know, but I can tell you this. I wish I lived in a world where more people could just say, I got hell in me. We always feel like we have to have a reason. Somebody is the reason, some thought, some idea, some policy is the reason I have hell in me. But try it on for size to just say, no, I just have hell in me. I just have hell in me, right? For the moment, it passes. It's not going to stay there. But what a beautiful gift it feels like she gave me by acknowledging that she had hell in her. She didn't say, there were times when she'd say, you're on my nerves. But when she would say that, she was a prophet in that moment. To me, I now look back and think she was a prophet because she was saying, I'm giving you warning. I'm like the rattlesnake. I'm giving you warning. So, that's my love. I'm showing you my love by giving you my warning that I got hell in me today. And if you ain't got the good sense to go somewhere, go to the park, go somewhere, that's on you. So, anyway, so I can feel, the internal critic, what some of us I call the gatekeeper, coming up and saying too much. This is too much. This is not the right kind of thing. But I want to say that because partly what I'm trying to do is reintegrate the wisdom of that kind of way of being in the world, right? It lets everybody off the hook. Can you imagine letting people off the hook by just claiming your hellishness as your own for the moment,
Mhm.
not making somebody else the reason for it, not making something else the reason for it. It's just a force that's going to move through. It only stays if you cling to it. Yeah, this moment is I got hell in me. The next minute, I want to cuddle a puppy. The next minute, I want to go lay in the sunshine and just let myself be baked, right? It's the clinging that's problematic. I don't know why I had to say that.
Because we all needed to hear it.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, Isoke.
Thank you. Thank you for invoking the Hellion and the vitalism. Yes.
And Aria, thank you for saying invoking, because here's the other part of it. That I feel like Black wisdom has to offer this bigger conversation, and it's the word funk. Even in the spaces where I feel like people have made it very safe to say anything, bring all your feelings, blah, blah, blah. Funk is still not really understood or allowed. I come from funky people.
Yes. Yes.
I come from people who like funk. And I'm not just talking about smell. I'm talking about
Funk.
funk. I don't even know enough.
You don't need to explain it.
Okay, all right.
It's just funk.
So, and we need some funk, because funk helps you to, what does it help you? I need help thinking this. I know that it's important. I know funk is important, but I haven't really developed an argument for it. So, Bayo, what do you think?
I think
Developing
an argument for funk is like trying to explain compost. We need shit. We need shit. We just need shit. Shit is the future. Funk is the future. So no explaining is required. That's where we grow. We grow in shit.
Well, let's take a moment to welcome and invite all of our funk, and we're gonna unmute everyone, and in the spirit of call and response, so that we can hear everybody's voice and everybody's gratitude, and that we can just do a collective whoa and ashe and amen and gratitude. So we're gonna come off a mute for a moment, and please, everybody, offer up your funk and your gratitude to Isoke and Bayo.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Isoke.
Thank you.
Bayo.
Beautiful. Oh my God.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up the funk.
In the funk.
We want the funk. Gotta have that funk. Yeah,
Who is that?
we
Who is
want
that?
the funk.
Got the funk.
Gotta have that funk. We want the funk.
Yeah, we got
Everybody's
Have
doing
that
it.
funk. We want the funk.
Yeah.
Gotta have.
Bringing all the funk, bringing the mercy, bringing the forgiveness. Thank you for cracking open so much for us, this gift of your wisdom, of your questions, of your practice, helping us to free and heal ourselves from the cult of whiteness, to reimagine and understand Blackness is the refusal of capture. To be with our wretchedness, to be with our funk, to be with our beauty, and that just the invitation of that last letter of the alphabet, the space beyond language. So many beautiful nuggets of wisdom. We are so grateful. And on that, I think I can speak collectively that there is a lot of gratitude and love for y'all and for this community. Just in a brief closing, if there's anything that both of you can share about any upcoming events or announcements that you have, ways that people can stay connected with you, there is a link for Bayo's website here in the chat, in Isoke's email, but just want to give you both a last closing word. I'm going to make a few announcements, and then Isoke, we'd love for you to close us in a song. But first, just anything you want the good people here to know.
I think y'all know who Jane Elliott is. Some of you know who Jane Elliott is. She's that woman who, after MLK was assassinated, she was a school teacher, second grade teacher, I think second grade. And she went to school and she did this experiment where she had the brown eyes, blue eyes for 2 days. And anyway, she's continued to do that work all over the world. And I heard her in an interview a few years back say, quote Aldous Huxley, who said, "No force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come." You know, in the part of me that's, you know, the good little Catholic girl who wanted to be a martyr, who wanted to be pure, that part of me says that idea that cannot be stopped is the reunification of consciousness.
Mm.
What is it for you? What's the idea whose time has come that cannot be stopped? What is the idea that no force on earth can stop because its time has come?
Thank you for this conversation. I came into this conversation a bit exhausted because I've been having lots of conversations today, but I feel rejuvenated. This has been, especially the funk part. I'm gonna, Auntie Soka, we need to write.
You're gonna write a book on funk now.
Yeah,
now that
exactly. You knew what I was gonna say. Let's just write a book. Call it funk. Just funk. That's it. With an exclamation mark or 3. But this feels like it wants to be said that we're in a lot of trouble now. You probably heard that the climate change conference in Glasgow ended in failure, and we're at our wits' end. A diplomat wrote to me and said that people who are at it's called COP26, who are at COP26 said, well, there'll be COP27. And it just seems we're repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. So I feel that we're stuck. And just like a knot on a thread cannot unravel itself except by something outside, seemingly outside of that arrangement, we need help. So I would like to invite everyone to call for help, not now, but let your work be calling for help. Trust that you're heard, that your voice is not streaming into the ether and vanishing into space, that it is remodeling space-time just by uttering your request. Call for help. Pray for Auntie Soke, pray for Aria, pray for Sunshine, pray for Kasi, pray for people here. Pray, let's pray together.
Yes.
Whatever prayer means to you. Notice that a crack is not just a place of inadequacy. It is the place where the surface worships the ground, where the surface is overcome by its own weight and it falls to under the gravitational pull of something more compelling than stability. That's where we live. That is where we thrive. That is the art of the moment, the politics that we're being called into now. So let's enter into those cracks with prayer, and I'll meet you there.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Aria, what did I say I'd sing at the end?
Well, let me just do one announcement, and then you were going to bring in the light with Sojourner Truth in this little light of mine. So,
okay.
But just to let folks know, if you're part of the Beloved Community Journey, join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time for this month's Affinity Practice Groups. You'll receive a link by email. And if you're not a part of the Beloved Community Journey and you want to learn more, please check out the link in the chat to learn about the full series. And our next public event will be on Sunday, December 5th at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard, A Bridge to Belonging with the incredible John Powell of the Othering and Belonging Institute and Alexa Garcia of Climbing Poetry. So don't miss it, y'all. You'll receive a follow-up email this coming week with the details. Thank you, Isoke. Thank you, Bayo. Thank you to the spirits, the ancestors, the tricksters, the future ones, the more than humans that have been here with us today. And Isoke, please close us out with your beautiful voice, with a prayer.
I would like to do it this way. And as people go, I know, we said we'd end at 10:30 California time. So whatever time that is where you are, leave as you need to. But if you don't need to leave, I'm going to start the song. And then if somebody wants to come in with a verse, sing it, and everybody else is muted. And you can sing in your room, but you're not going to be heard on here because you know how crazy that is on Zoom. So let me start with the quote. Sojourner Truth, who was an enslaved person, an ex-enslaved person who all 11 of her children were sold into slavery, and who bore the scar on her back of having been whipped, became an abolitionist and a suffragette, said this: I refuse to allow the light of my life to be determined by the darkness around me. And I'm saying that some of these African practices are a means of restoring the light. So, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And maybe somebody, everywhere I go, no matter what, whatever, add a verse, somebody. I know somebody out there wants to sing out loud for the group. Unmute yourself and sing so we can hear you. I know there's someone. Come on now, come on, come on, come on.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Back to you, Isoke.
Oh, beautiful. Anybody else? One more. Come on now, come on. One more. Somebody wants to do it. Now, you know, all them people who sang in the field didn't have beautiful voices. That's not the point. The point is, can you sing the song with some soul, with some feeling? That's all. It can be off key even. Come on, come on. One more. Okay, then.
I got you.
You got me? All right, then.
Don't hide it under a bushel, no. I'm gonna let it shine. Don't hide it under a bushel, no. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, don't hide it under a bushel, no. We're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
And we've got Zara too. Zara, bring us home.
This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, 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 shine.